Nutrition science intervention studies. Intervention studies, also sometimes called experimental studies or clinical trials, include some type of treatment or change imposed by the researcher. Examples of interventions in nutrition research include asking participants to change their diet, take a supplement, or change the time of day that they can eat. Unlike observational studies, intervention studies can provide evidence of cause and effect, so they are higher in the hierarchy of evidence pyramid. The gold standard for intervention studies is the randomized controlled trial, or RCT. In an RCT, study subjects are recruited to participate in the study. They are then randomly assigned into one of at least two groups, one of which is a control group. This is what makes the study controlled. In an RCT, to study the effects of the Mediterranean diet on cardiovascular disease development, researchers might ask the control group to follow a low-fat diet, typically recommended for heart disease prevention, and the intervention group would eat a Mediterranean diet. The study would continue for a defined period of time, usually years, to study an outcome like heart disease, at which point the researchers would analyze their data to see if more people in the control or Mediterranean diet had heart attacks or strokes. Because the treatment and control groups were randomly assigned, they should be alike in every other way except for diet, so differences in heart disease could be attributed to the diet. This eliminates the problem of confounding factors found in observational research, and why its RCTs can provide evidence of causation, not just correlation. Imagine for a moment what would happen if the two groups weren't randomly assigned. What if the researchers let study participants choose which diet they'd like to adopt for the study? They might, for whatever reason, end up with more overweight people who smoke and have high blood pressure in the low-fat diet group, and more people who exercised regularly and had already been eating lots of olive oil and nuts for years in the Mediterranean diet group. If they found that the Mediterranean diet group had fewer heart attacks by the end of the study, they would have no way of knowing if this was because of the diet or because of the underlying differences in the groups. In other words, without randomization, their results would be compromised by confounding factors, with many of the same limitations as observational studies. In an RCT of a supplement, the control group would receive a placebo or fake treatment that contains no active ingredients, such as a sugar pill. The use of a placebo is necessary in medical research because of a phenomenon known as the placebo effect. The placebo effect results in a beneficial effect because of a subject's belief in the treatment, even though there is no treatment actually being administered. For example, imagine an athlete who consumes a sports drink and then runs 100 meters in 11 seconds. On a different day, under the exact same conditions, the athlete is given a super-duper sports drink and again runs 100 meters, this time in 10.5 seconds. But what the athlete didn't know was that the super-duper sports drink was the same as the regular sports drink. It just had a bit of food coloring added. There was nothing different between the sports drinks, but the athlete believed that the super-duper sports drink was going to help him run faster, so he did. This improvement is due to the placebo effect. Ironically, a study similar to this example was published, demonstrating the power of the placebo effect on athletic performance. Blinding is a technique to prevent bias in intervention studies. In a study without blinding, the subject and the researchers both know what treatment the subject is receiving. This can lead to bias if the subject or researcher has expectations about the treatment working. So these types of trials are used less frequently. It's best if a study is double-blind, meaning that neither the researcher nor the subject know what treatment the subject is receiving. It's relatively simple to double-blind a study where the subjects are receiving a placebo or treatment pill because they could be formulated to look and taste the same. In a single-blind study, either the researcher or the subject knows what treatment they're receiving, but not both. Studies of diets, such as the Mediterranean diet example, often can't be double-blinded because the study subjects know whether or not they're eating a lot of olive oil and nuts. However, the researchers who are checking the participants' blood pressure or evaluating their medical records could be blinded to their treatment group, reducing the chance of bias. Like all studies, RCTs and other intervention studies do have some limitations. They can be difficult to carry on for long periods of time and require that participants remain compliant with the intervention. They're also costly and often have smaller sample sizes. Furthermore, it is unethical to study certain interventions. An example of an unethical intervention would be to advise one group of pregnant mothers to drink alcohol to determine its effects on pregnancy outcomes, because we know that alcohol consumption during pregnancy damages the fetus. Meta-analysis and systematic reviews. At the top of the hierarchy of evidence pyramid are systematic reviews and meta-analysis. You can think of these as studies of studies. They attempt to combine all of the relevant studies that have been conducted on a research question and summarize their overall conclusions. Researchers conducting a systematic review formulate a research question and then systematically and independently identify, select, evaluate, and synthesize all high-quality evidence that relates to the research question. Since systematic reviews combine the results of many studies, they help researchers produce more reliable findings. A meta-analysis is a type of systematic review that goes one step further, combining the data from multiple studies and using statistics to summarize it, as if creating a mega-study from many smaller studies. However, even systematic reviews and meta-analysis aren't the final word on scientific questions. For one thing, they're only as good as the studies that they include. The Cochrane Collaboration is an international consortium of researchers who conduct systematic reviews in order to inform evidence-based healthcare, including nutrition, and their reviews are among the most well-regarded and rigorous in science. For the most recent Cochrane review of the Mediterranean diet and cardiovascular disease, 2 authors independently reviewed studies published on this question. The Cochrane Review authors noted that they found 7 ongoing trials of the Mediterranean diet, so we can hope that they'll add more clarity to this question in the future. Science is an ongoing process. It's often a slow process, and it contains a lot of uncertainty, but it's our best method of building knowledge of how the world and human life works. Many different types of studies can contribute to scientific knowledge. None are perfect, all have limitations, and a single study is never the final word on a scientific question. Part of what advances science is that researchers are constantly checking each other's work, asking how it can be improved, and what new questions it raises.